Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome to Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 7.
Saison 7, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
And in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci
Thank you
d'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Dear listeners, hello, Anne Charlotte here. Welcome to this new Spotlight episode of Comdarchi. Today I'm going to talk to you about a subject that's all over the news these days. However, I don't like doing what everyone else does, so why cover it? It is a project that illustrates my latest format so perfectly well. Season 7, number 29. It is titled Time and Architecture. You have guessed which project we're talking about, haven't you? I'll give it to you right away. The Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. The Sagrada Familia, literally the Holy Family, because it crosses time and eras through its chronology. Its sublime anachronism, the transcendence it proposes, its structural and formal renewal, so powerful in its funding method. Usually, I reserve the topic of churches for the Christmas season and with the greatest restraint, even though I love the uplifting strength of these buildings. But we shouldn't make a rod for our own backs, should we? I fear that by talking too much about churches, a label will quickly stick to Comdarchi. Mind you, by clinging so hard to etiquette, this era just shrinks everyone down, wouldn't you say? So precisely, let's gain some perspective. Because the Sagrada in 2026, in this transition from spring to summer within the seaside city, invites itself into the news. Due to the inauguration, visit by Pope Leo XIV commanding respect, and because the Sagrada, now the tallest in the world, draws its roots from the local soil. I climbed those very steps over 10 years ago, bothered by the flow of tourists forming an endless human procession. In the tower's small staircase, I could neither stop, nor contemplate, nor retrace my steps, just to suspend time, a few seconds at the mercy of a viewpoint. No. We had to move forward at everyone's pace, not stumble so as not to cause a chain reaction fall, or even blink, I believe, to focus all one's energy on one's breath, one's step, to finish the climb without a hitch, without disrupting the human caterpillar. During this feat, filled with patience, I admit, I was a little sickened, with a mad desire to leave the place which seemed to me populated by an incalculable number of zombie tourists. No doubt almost all of them thought the same thing as me, with a few nuances. So let's return today, within these walls, with our ears alone, in an architectural, historical, and unprecedented exploration in Comdarchi of the sacred place. One, the chronology, 1872. Josep Maria Boccabella, bookseller in Barcelona, returns from Italy. The man of books, pious and convinced. An expiatory place must be built in the city, a church dedicated to the Sagrada Familia and financed by the alms of the faithful. With this in mind, he buys land in the new district designed by Ildefons Cerda, the Example district. The architect, already builder of a neo-Gothic church, Francesc de Paula Villar, takes charge of the project. But following the construction of the crypt's columns, the latter resigns, due to disagreements with the bookseller's technical advisor. Technical advisor, going by the name of Joan Martorell, who refuses him the initial project. So Martorell proposes the project to Antoni Gaudí, promising young architect finishing the Vic Vicens summer villa in Gracia. We are in 1883. Antoni Gaudí is 31 years old. In his takeover of the project, the young architect must respect the orientation of the basilica and the work done at the crypt level and initiated by VR. However, Gaudí proposes a much more ambitious project. A temple of 5 naves, a crossing, an apse, an exterior ambulatory used as a cloister, 3 façades, 18 towers. Antoni Gaudí infuses this temple with Christian symbolism. He dedicates 43 years of his life to it. At the time of his accidental death in 1926, only the crypt, the apse, the cloister, the Nativity façade, and 4 towers are built. After an interruption of nearly 3 decades, the work resumes in 1954. Despite its very recent inauguration, it remains unfinished today, and reminds us of the era of cathedrals, which arrogance has nevertheless challenged in the reconstruction of Notre Dame de Paris, for better and or for worse. 2. The singularity. Gaudí is a buttress specialist, but rather than showing them as in traditional Gothic architecture, he seeks to absorb them into the structure itself. He studies the lines of force using funicular models made of strings and suspended weights, which he photographs upside down to obtain the ideal shape of the thrusts. This experimental method allows him to break free from visible buttresses and make the building work in its entirety. His quest for a truth rooted in nature permeates his entire approach. I quote, "Decadence begins the moment man stops looking at nature," he asserts. The son of the coppersmith from Rossi's studies trees, bones, and plant forms, and he even hangs skeletons in his workshop to fully understand how they work. He also works with photography. Inside the Sagrada Familia, the columns branch out just like tree trunks, hyperboloids, hyperbolic paraboloids, helicoids, and ruled surfaces. Helicoid and ruled surface compose a new geometry. The 12 upper paraboloids meet at a point. The vaults, the windows, and the columns proceed from the same structural logic, inspired by living things. The great nave becomes a stone forest. The columns absorb the loads and distribute the forces without it being necessary to resort to the powerful visible buttresses of Gothic cathedrals. The structure itself becomes ornament. Gaudí seeks to defy the laws of gravity while respecting them. The Tower of Christ reaches 172.5 meters, thus becoming the tallest church in the world, but it intentionally remains slightly lower than the neighboring Montjuic mountain. For Gaudí, the work of man must never surpass that of God. Enduring over time, the work continues after him. Architect Mark Burry joins the adventure in the 20th century and participates in the development of digital tools, notably derived from software used in the aeronautics industry, to model the complex shapes imagined by Gaudí. More recently, the Tower of the Virgin Mary was built using largely updated processes combining off-site prefabrication and in-situ assembly. Its 12-pointed star, put in place by rope access specialists and covered with colorful mosaics. Part 3. Focus, apse, cloister, the Nativity façade. When Gaudí takes over the site, he keeps the crypt and the apse started by Villar, whose language still remains largely neo-Gothic. Around the building, he imagines a continuous cloister. This exterior gallery, intended for processions and processional movement, wraps around the entire temple like a protective enclosure. Rare in church history, this system connects the building's different parts and contributes to its unity. It recalls the great era of Renaissance Gothic in its quest for unity and the integration of a processional space. And yet, with Gaudí, structural language and formal language merge. The Nativity façade is the one Gaudí will see the most advanced. It remains today the main direct testimony of his hand. Dedicated to the birth of Christ, it is teeming, fauna, flora, angel, Symbols and biblical episodes proliferate there in an extremely dense composition. Nature appears there both transfigured and fantasized. Drawing from the landscapes of Catalonia and even from the red sandstone of the mountains of his native land, this great stone vessel is imbued with symbolism. Gaudí wishes to make the basilica a true stone Bible, accessible to all. Architecture becomes narrative. From the 1950s, continuing the construction also requires completing certain missing sculptures. Among them are the musician angels at the top, created more recently by the Japanese sculptor Etsuro Sotou, who has devoted his work to the Sagrada Familia for several decades. And to conclude, Antoni Gaudí gradually locks himself in his workshop. Inhabited by a growing mysticism, he devotes the last years of his life almost exclusively to the Sagrada Familia. Just 100 years ago, on June 7th, 1926, while on his way to confession, Antoni Gaudí is struck by a streetcar. Initially mistaken for a poor man, he is taken to the hospital. 3 days later, he succumbs to his injuries. He rests today in the basilica's crypt. His work outlives him. For over 140 years, architects, engineers, craftsmen, and sculptors have succeeded one another. Tools change, techniques evolve, generations pass the site on to each other. Men pass. The work remains. No doubt this is what touches us so much about the Sagrada Familia. Christian faith or not. Faith, Christian or otherwise, grounded in hope and charity, even in the most secular sense of the term, remains one of the great engines of human adventures. Believing in something greater, accepting to pass it on without seeing the completion of the work. Maybe that's what makes great projects possible. And in the desperate times we're going through, this thought does bring some hope. This monument constantly reminds us that some architecture isn't built on the scale of a human life. It also reminds us that we often just inhabit a moment and a history much larger than ourselves. This idea comes back to me more intensely every time architecture travel through time. Another lesson in humility. Architecture may not be so much about leaving a mark as it is about joining a continuity. Antoni Gaudí used to say, originality consists of returning to the origins. End of quote. A word to the wise. And with these words, dear listeners, I thank you for your loyal and attentive listening. See you very soon for a new episode of Comdarchi. We will have in July and August, admittedly, some summer Comdarchi that will replace the spot formats, but more sparingly than previous summers, and new exclusive interviews, presumably. The interviews shouldn't suffer any interruptions in the end. All right, until then, take care of yourselves. Goodbye now.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to tune in to our previous content on Instagram at Comdarchi Podcast. If you like it, make sure to promote the podcast by giving it 5 stars on Apple Podcast and adding a comment, or on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe and listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.